And so, as we begin here, I'd like to just invite us all to organically bring to the altar of our hearts the three jewels, beginning with the refuge that we take here in the Sangha, taking refuge in community, a community of like minded friends, practitioners who are also on the path with us, friends who are also resisting unwholesome ways of living. So, this is a refuge that we can come to first as a physical space, and then, moreover, as a refuge of Sangha within ourselves. So, I invite you to call to mind those who have inspired you on the path, those who have led you down this path, your teachers, your friends, your community, even suffering. Take refuge in the Sangha within myself, the community that lives in mindful harmony, the community that is committed to the precepts, to ethical conduct, to sila. And may the refuge of Sangha arouse in you joy, the joy of being in community with one another, the joy that we have spiritual friendships, kalyanamitas. As the Buddha once said, spiritual friends, kalyanamitas, are the whole of this holy practice. This is how much we need each other. And now I'd like to invite you to bring to the altar of your heart the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, the way of understanding and love. The teachings that reveal to us how things really are, the nature of impermanence, the nature of suffering, the nature of happiness. The practices that liberate our minds and our hearts. Taking refuge in the Dharma as we see it in the world, and taking refuge in the Dharma within ourselves. When we practice meditation, we get in touch with the Dharma within us. And alas, I invite you to take refuge in the Buddha, calling to mind the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, a human being that reached extraordinary heights of understanding, compassion, and love, who attained the most supreme state of awakening. And also bringing to mind awakened teachers that we know of in the history and in our time. Across all traditions, across all religions, the awakened qualities that we've come in touch with that inspires us. And taking refuge in the possibility of awakening within ourselves, the Buddha nature within us and within everyone around us. And that the Buddha is not in some place or some time far from here of the past or of the future. But by taking refuge in the Buddha, we are taking refuge in awakening as it is here and now, waking up to the present moment, waking up to life, to this breath. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. And to the degree that that's possible, see if you can get in touch with the joy of that possibility. The joy of knowing that there's a way out. The joy of knowing that it has been demonstrated to us and revealed to us. And now through practicing, we come to understand or remember or get in touch with this essence, this truth within ourselves. through our own eyes, through our own sense doors, through our own inner wisdom. Dum, sum, gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. And invite the bell as we transition into meditation. And dear friends, please make yourself comfortable, knowing that you can practice in any posture that you choose. So whether that is sitting, standing, or walking, or even if there's a space for you to lie down. It's important that we spend this time, especially the first part of our practice, producing joy, enjoying being at home with ourselves, enjoy breathing, finding comfort in the body, coming to that place where we feel really settled within ourselves. So working to tranquilize the body. When the body is at ease, the mind follows. And you can choose any anchor that feels most supportive. So maybe that's sound, hearing sound, the sound of my voice, or the sound outside the window, or the sound of things in your space. Or maybe it's staying in touch with the breath and having the breath be the tranquilizer of the body and mind. Or that might be grounding yourself in sensations. The coming and going of sensations, and feeling the element within the body. So really finding that anchor, that spark interest and joy. And being gentle with yourself as you explore what's supportive, what's nourishing for your practice in this time and moment by moment. in each moment of being at home with the body. See if there's a possibility to soften, to allow yourself to rest in this shape, in this form, letting go of any way it should be, the body should be. Inviting this openness, this attitude of welcoming, welcoming what is here now, welcoming however the body is in this moment. And in welcoming, resting back, softening, trusting in the stability of your posture. And I invite you to bring this curiosity to whatever's here now, whether it's a stimulus from the outside coming in through the sense doors, or whether it is something that's already there within you, a pain in the body, a sensation, or a hindrance of the mind, restlessness, or any of the states of mind that might already be there. Bringing this curiosity to how it feels like. Where does that energy live within? And getting curious if there's a possibility to soften, and whether it means you are ready to touch the experience or to nourish yourself with your anchor, nourishing yourself with the breath or the feeling, the contact points. You notice that moment of relief absence of the hindrances, or that moment where there's a break or a pause. Or that quietness or stillness that's beneath the noise, beneath the movement. Knowing everything that occurs outside of us in this moment is beyond our control. Is it possible to find okayness with that? And maybe these thoughts and these bodily sensations occur without us choosing. Can we be okay with that? And we notice when we're not okay with it. And notice when we accept and come to terms with all the conditions that exist in this moment. Be they pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That moment of letting go, that moment of returning back to home base. Wherever you are now, I'd like to invite you to see if you can find what's right about this moment. Find what is good within. Where can awareness rest? Where can awareness take shelter? Place of solace. Maybe it's experiencing pleasant sensation. Maybe it's experiencing the aliveness of the body. Or maybe it's touching into the calmness and perhaps the joy of practicing, the joy of being alive. The joy of knowing that there's a body supporting life. And there's the breath always taking care of us. In a moment, you hear the sound of the bell. You're welcome to continue sitting if you like, or to transition out of meditation. And even in the transition, I invite you to see transition as a practice. The practice of completing and ending something. And then the practice of moving in or out of something. And see the intention to rise from meditation. Thank you, friends, for joining in the practice. I'd like to begin first by sharing an article or a blog that I came across. And this was really spoke to maybe a lot of hearts and minds at this time. And this writer, Nadia Boltz, whoever, she was writing to God, and we could call that God, or maybe if that doesn't work for some of us, it doesn't resonate with us, the Buddha nature, wisdom and compassion within us, or the universe. And she says, "Dear God, you remember the whole who by worrying can add a single hour to their life thing? I could use a reminder of that right now. I guess what I'm saying is, please help me not miss the good stuff because I'm worrying about the bad stuff." And continue reading. I realized that I couldn't copy the whole thing, so we could finish it on here. Start over. Dear God, you remember that whole who by worrying can add a single hour to their life thing? I could use a reminder of that right now. I'm just rehearsing dread and practicing fear right now. So when I start doomcasting about what might happen in days to come, remind me that this day has worries of its own. Guide my hand to turn off the radio, my feet to walk away from my laptop, and my eyes to turn away from my phone because none of this stuff is healthy for me right now. With your grace, may we all recoil from hot, takes us from a hot flame, and then give me the strength to do the right thing in this life I have been given among these people in this place. I guess what I'm saying is, please help me not miss the good stuff because I'm worrying about the bad stuff. And then she ends by saying, and if it's not too much of a bother, could you, in your infinite mercy, also help everyone be on their best behavior this year at all our Thanksgiving tables? That'd be great because more drama we do not need. And she signs at the bottom. Sometimes all I have is this mantra. I'm changing the language a little bit. Inhale the good stuff and exhale the bad stuff. So she says, inhale the BS or exhale the BS. So inhale the good stuff and exhale the bad stuff. Okay. So we thought this really, was such a moment of wisdom and of awareness to be able to recognize how we get consumed by our fears, our worries, our doubts, and the concerns that we have about how things are or might be here or in the future, or things that have come in the past. And inside of these concerns, the Buddha came up with 8 conditions that we often concern ourselves with. And these conditions just knock us out, just has us go in circles throughout our whole life. And this in the Lokavipatti Sutta, it's called the failings of the world, right? So they're known as failings, not just concerns or the worldly winds, but they're the failings of the world. And that's translated by Bhikkhu Thanisaro. So we have first, when we're sitting on the cushion, we experience this very immediately, pain and pleasure, right? So when we move, we're moving away from pain. And when we feel pleasure, we cling or grasp onto it. And we can also see the pain of the things we don't like or don't want to have happen, the loss and gain. So I'll just briefly go over these and praise and blame. And then the other one is good reputation and bad reputation. So also known as success and failure. So these are all social conditions that is how we relate with the world, with people around us, and also how we relate to ourselves that causes us to suffer. And if we look in our own lives, how much this has taken up our life energy, right? To chase after success or to mitigate failure. When we feel blamed and the good feelings we get when we receive praise, or even for some of us, the chip that we wear on our shoulder. Am I doing okay? Am I good enough? Looking for recognition, right? And so all these things, when we contemplate about the conditions, the worldly conditions that constantly have us just like a feather in the wind, blown this way and then blown that way. And today, particularly in this time now, as I tuned into a lot of the groups, the conversations, there's a lot of concern about how things are going to be next year. And to some degree, it's valid for us to be concerned. We care. We care for the well-being of our communities, of our the groups that we're part of, the lives around us. But at the same time, as this author, this writer Nadia says, who by worrying can add a single hour to their life? And someone commented in her writing that everything belongs. Yet we seem to discriminate on the basis of how we would like the world to be. So can we give thanks in all circumstances that are presented to us? So just like today when we're meditating, how many of you felt like the traffic didn't belong, right? That this traffic doesn't belong here. This sound, this noise, it should be some other way. If only we close the window, that maybe my meditation could be better. And anytime, as we all know, what we resist will continue to cause restlessness and dis-ease in us. And it's not that we, give into it, like we still don't, we still stand for peace. We still resist unwholesome ways of being out in the world. But there's something to be said about trying to find what is good, what is still possible here and now. And so in our practice today, I wanted to ask you all at the very end when we practice, and I invited you to see if we can find what's right about this moment. What goodness were you able to touch into? Was anyone able to find what felt right in that moment? To be open to sharing. What did you feel was right? Did anyone touch into something good within? And maybe a pleasant sensation at one point. Can you identify? Or, yes, Margaret.
Yes. Well,
A second, Margaret. Let's see if we can up the volume on you.
Okay.
It's gonna be
Better.
gonna be on the mixer there. You have to turn the Zoom sound up. Yeah. Okay. See if you can try that again, Margaret.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I it's funny. I did have kind of an uncomfortable day. There was some resistance, and when I just decided to go ahead and accept it
Mhm.
uh, for what it was, like or dislike, there is a moment. There's some freedom. There's an opening. There's freedom there, and uh, uh, because the truth of this realm, this sense realm, is that we're going to have comfort and discomfort. Uh, but to recognize that we can, what we often do is feed it. And that certainly causes drama, more discord in a lot of ways. And to accept the fact that that is the reality. And as I say, there's freedom there in there. There's an opening in there. And to me, that's quite lovely. And then I can take that loveliness, that niceness, and carry it in my heart. So it's in a lot of ways a new beginning. One never knows, there's always lots in front of us, before us, but it can be a new beginning,
Mhm.
that very moment.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Mhm. Thank you so much,
uh, uh,
Margaret. Yeah, relating what Margaret said, that when we open ourselves up to accept the unpleasant and the pleasant, right? The good news and the bad news, things that are in our favor and not in our favor. Just a recognition of that in and of itself is a moment of acceptance. And as you said, Margaret, it grants us that freedom from being caught in, resisting or clinging or wanting things to be some other way other than how it is in this moment. And so our practice teaches us, first of all, in this instance, that sense of equanimity to receive all of it. Mm. Yes, Reverend Scott asked if I could post a link to the page. Yes, I can do that. Thank you. Mhm. Anyone else have anything you'd like to say? And for those in the room, there's a mic in front of, right next to the Buddha. Um, if you take that mic, everyone on Zoom can also hear you. Margaret again? Yes, Margaret.
do you mind? Do you mind if I say another thing? I was just curious. I am, for instance, taking care of some pets for a friend of mine, and one of them I find that I have difficulty with. I find that our personalities are very different,
Mhm.
and I struggle a little bit, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to do something good for these kitties, and at least for them to know in my heart that I'm caring for them with the goodness in my heart, because they can tell when that's not there.
Mhm.
And there again, that seems very small, but I feel like it's applying the practice because I feel better and they feel better.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so there is a way to shape our experience, which I also love about the Dharma very
Mhm.
much. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Thank you for your wisdom.
that's all I'll say.
Yeah, that when we can arouse that wholesome quality within us, it's what
Mhm,
we can offer to others.
mhm. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. There it is. And I think you asked, like, did we find anything right?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
that help?
Mhm.
My reaction when you said that was first one of resistance. Was, and I think it was just sort of not wanting to think of things in the framework of right and wrong.
Mhm.
And so instead, what I found my mind responding to that with at first was like, no, I'm not gonna look for that. And then the next thing was neutral for neutral. Um, and that I found pretty easily, like there's just sort of a sensation in this part of my body which just feels neutral.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm just as you were talking to us thinking about that, like the refuge of neutral. I was sort of practicing. I had a teacher once talk about practicing bringing our attention to neutral a lot, to sort of expand our attention for those kinds of things, to expand that space. So we're flip-flopping back and forth between the other two lines. But then as you were talking as well, I was thinking about that for me, I've sort of learned over time in sitting, just starting with neutral objects or the breath or something like that, is pretty challenging for me. And so I start by looking at or noticing pleasant sensations. And that helps me quite a bit to just sort of be able to become more present. I say, oh, that's pleasant. And I'll say kind words to myself or not the phrasing, but something like that. That sort of tells my nervous system, okay, I'm safe right now.
Yes.
And then I can get into the present. So I'm not just leaving on all the good stuff.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I think you really just beautifully, demonstrated the process that in that moment, either finding neutral as a really wonderful support, right? Or and other times it's, finding that pleasant feeling within, finding some enjoyment in our practice that brings us to stability. Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I was amused with the sound of the cars going by.
Yeah.
Um, and so maybe there's a sense of irony that I carry with me. Uh, but I think that sometimes when I'm triggered or when I'm sort of in a suffering mode, I can see I can see that there's a lesson waiting. And I just have to be aware and and sometimes I can see that, and sometimes I can't. But it's uh, it's kind of a lesson for me about both sides of the coin. And less me that's involved in that, perhaps the more likely I can see it from um, from away from my perspective. So in other words, I can see it maybe objectively, maybe that's the way to say it.
Mhm, mhm.
So yeah. So there's the gratitude for when looking for something to be grateful for, I thought, oh, I'm meditating. But then I realized, oh, well, I'm not actually meditating when I'm saying I'm meditating. So it kind of gets twisted around. But I think I really should.
You're great. Yes, Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh. Um, and yeah, I think when you said to look for, what's right, I noticed just kind of like a warm-hearted, kind of like happy feeling in this kind of area. And now that we're talking about it, I do think that probably would have gone unnoticed if you hadn't given them instruction right then. Um, and I'm just thinking right now about how, I mean, this is pretty normal, I think, but when I am trying, it seems like if I'm trying to focus on something neutral, like anchor to the breath, it feels like my natural tendency is only to go from there to negative things. Like, it's like breath, no pain. Oh, there's like this pain, breath. Oh, pain there. Oh, breath, pain. And it's like, it just doesn't seem like my natural tendency ever hops from like pain to, oh, like a warm-hearted, nice feeling. So that's interesting. I feel like it, that could be maybe really important for me to try to do, shoot my mind a little bit in that direction, but I do just kind of worry about meditation getting too where I'm just feel like I'm like manipulating too much and trying to look, it's like, yeah, if I'm trying to look here, am I ignoring this, or am I just playing some like little game in my mind, or so those are some thoughts that
Yeah.
I'm having.
Yeah. Thank you for posing such a wonderful inquiry. And if I may respond to that, yeah. In the practice of meditation, we begin with samatha, which is serenity practice. Samatha, serenity practice, and in serenity meditation, the purpose of serenity meditation is to help us get to that calm, still state. And to get there, we first use these qualities like joy, like equanimity, like that warmth, that loving kindness, and that compassion to treat those other states of mind, treat the other hindrances like agitation, restlessness, sloth, and torpor, lustful desires mind, doubt, right? So we look for, we reach for a meditator and Wake Up Together said it's like excavating for these wholesome qualities within. So in a way, yes, there is an effort initially. It is important to put in that effort initially to help us get to a place where we feel like soothe, right? We soothe all of the 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 hindrances, soothe all of the defilements, all of the energy within us. And for some of us, this is an exploration and it's different for everyone, but for some meditator, it is actually making the breath more coarse so that it becomes a strong anchor rather than just going right into that subtle breath. So actually doing this, what Tityakan calls conscious in-breath and out-breath. And it's a more fuller, longer, deeper breath. And doing that for a while to calm and soothe the nervous system. And then this is looking for joy, like trying to enjoy breathing. We're trying to enjoy the body, and this is why it's so important to find that comfortable posture. So however that might be, it's in some traditions, like, okay, it has to be completely upright. And that's, I think, for each person to explore what feels most comfortable, but stable, but helps us to remain awake, but also relax. And so initially, in samatha vipassana, in serenity, leading to insight, right? Serenity and insight meditation, we want to use these tools, use these strategies to get our mind to a calm state. And I want to share on this because speaking on getting to that blissful state, we first have to work to arouse joy within us. Or sometimes joy can be like this aliveness that we feel within the body. It can be this, in Buddhist texts, it's also described as rapture. The Pali word is piti. And sometimes it arises as another form called pamoja, which is a gladness that we feel, or when the hindrances, all of the obstructions of mind settle, and there's this like relief, just even for a little bit in that time where it's like, oh, the restlessness has, uh, has weakened, or that desirous mind, or the sloth and torpor has lifted, and I'm awake now. So that joy that comes with the release of the hindrances. And then once we experience that joy, that gladness, so that what happens is it gladdens the mind. And then upon that, then we let go of that too, of like the need to produce that joy, because now it's there. It's like it pervades throughout, like you said, that warmth in the chest area. We're in touch with it. It starts to expand and fill out. And then when we're in that place and we let go of that, then that's the effortless effort that you were talking about, where we're no longer trying to do anything. We just kind of rest back fully and just allow the breath to be subtle. It naturally becomes subtle. So even initially when we breathe a little harder, when we let the breath tranquilize the body and mind, later on the breath will become subtle naturally. We don't need to make it subtle, but in that point when it's subtle, then that's when we step into the bliss, or the we call in Pali sukha, happiness, just contented with just how things are. Yeah. So that to respond to what your question of inquiry is that I find that it's this component of being able to find or discover and land in that the place within us where we can access the warmth, where we can access the joy, where we can even touch into something that feels right and miss everything that could feel wrong about this moment, right? or, in other words, the wholesome qualities that also are there. I think it was someone earlier, I think it was Rob, or was it Margaret, that mentioned that even amidst, all of the challenges we experience, that on the other side of the coin, that's also, oh, peace. Or on the other side of this feeling of, intense pain or suffering, there could be joy or even happiness. It's just right there. Just, I like to say it's beneath the movement, it's beneath the noise, that it's also there. In some way of expressing it, it's that ground of being, or ground of being. It's right there underneath that. And we allow ourselves to experience it. So it's almost like a permission that we give ourselves to let it in, to let joy in. But joy is not even coming from outside of us. It's in us. It's the meditator and our Wake Up Together, Kathy says, it's like excavating for joy that's within us. And that's the moment where we stop fighting. It's that moment, as someone said in morning meditation, and I think it was Kimberly, where she said, it's like the moment that I let go of trying to, make this happen, or my mind is like thinking about something and how I don't like it or it's wrong. And the moment I let go of that joy became possible. The moment that we stopped expecting, that joy became possible, because we stepped into, like Margaret said, acceptance. And when we step into acceptance, equanimity is there. And so are the other Brahma Viharas, right? So the other balanced qualities. Equanimity is there. Then joy arises, right? And then there's that feeling of gladness. And I want to share too from Bhante Gunaratana, who wrote Mindfulness in Plain English. He's the oldest living monk, I believe, and he's a Sri Lankan Theravada monk who co-founded the Bhavana Society. And he tells the story of what rapture is. It's or joy, in other words, rapture, joy is. And I'll put it in a context. So there's a story about a weary traveler who's in the middle of this desert on a hot summer day. And the traveler is exhausted. He's been walking in this desert for days on end, and he's filled with just a lot of exhaustion, and the heat is beating on him, and he's he could be a person who could be filled with agitation, right? Anger, annoyance. He could be upset at the sun for being so hot, for the desert, for being the way the desert is. And maybe upset about his whole journey. What am I doing? How did I get myself here? But at this point, he's looking for where the water is. And in that moment where he meets someone who has encountered this water, he's filled with joy. There's hope. There's a sense of, oh my God, I'm getting close to the water, right? And this other traveler tells him how to get to this place where the water is. And when he gets there and finds the oasis, there's this beautiful blue natural lake with cool water, and there's forests of shady trees. And so he hasn't gotten there yet, but he could see it from a distance, and he experienced this gladness, this delight. As he walks closer to get closer to it, there's that feeling, that's excitement, that aliveness, that exuberant feeling of joy. And then, so this is the joy that we can experience when we, seek for something other than, like, if he was someone who was like not looking for the possibility of what could bring him joy, and he was just, complaining or just completely frustrated, there wouldn't be maybe that possibility that he could encounter that person, right? But it's like he had a single pointedness of, of remaining equanimous to just the journey, the difficulty of the journey. And so as he jumped into the water and bathed himself in it and drink the water, then he sit by the bank of this lake, and now he experienced this wonderful feeling, feeling satisfied, and that's happiness, sukha. So to get to that state where we feel bliss in our practice, we access joy. We come to that through joy, through feeling warmth, the friendliness, and that type of happiness follows naturally by way of, cultivating this state of mind of gladness, of feeling delight. And I want to say that it's, with everything that's going on right now in your lives and world and how things are, maybe it seems radical, or could be feel impossible. But could joy come from that moment where you feel the comfort of the breath, or the smile that gives rise to joy from within? That moment, maybe just recognizing that I'm alive. We have someone right now in our Wake Up Together Sangha who is uncertain when her time is going to come. And she tunes in from the hospital bed. And she says, when I'm in the present moment and I'm here, I'm with whatever's here now, I experience so much peace and joy. My mind's not thinking about what's going to happen to me tomorrow or the next day, where life is going to go, if life will continue or not. But she said that I feel so much joy when I'm in the present moment. The future is not here, and the ghost of the past is not here. And being here in the present moment, I could feel joy even though everything else could be so uncertain, even in the midst of impermanence. Yes, Rob, something you'd like to share? Yeah.
I have a question, or a comment and a question, but sometimes I feel like there's a joy that's like a really quiet, soft joy. And it's not the big, shiny, wonderful, great joy that is something you strive for.
Yeah.
But it's a quiet joy of having a moment of awareness taking a breath. And there's sort of a quiet contentedness to that joy. And that's the joy that I'm probably have moments of. But do you think that there's that joy can be found in the neutral space?
Mhm.
And how helpful is that? And how accessible does that make joy when it's there?
Yeah, wow, what a great question. I see some head nods. So there are practitioners who definitely can relate to that joy. Yes, that joy, that that neutrality can give rise to joy. Yes, and that's one thing in Thai Thich Khan's commentary about the four foundations of mindfulness. He talks about how sometimes the neutral feeling can be pleasant, can be positive, and can be something that we take delight in. You know, it's like that relief that, ah, yeah. And that joy you mentioned is that that's a spiritual joy. It's not the joy that comes from outside of us, some condition or thing that came together. You know, it's not because we dance and then we feel joy because we, you know, those were conditioned joy. But this is a joy that arises from within. It's like that well within us. Mhm. Um, and I appreciate what you said about uh, the joy of having, I think you said, come out of certain states or being aware. Yeah, the joy of being aware. That too is I think where as meditators, something we can cultivate more. That moment when we realize that our mind is wandering, you know, is to rejoice in that. Yes, I noticed my mind was wandering in that moment. Or, oh, I'm triggered by that, and I'm aware I'm triggered by that. You know, even rejoicing in that. That's an awareness that now we've gained, we've come to see for ourselves. Right? It's like encountering a breakdown and knowing that, oh, this is good because this breakdown means that I'm gonna break through something. Like there's gonna be a moment where this will shift and change. So can that give rise to joy? Can suffering give rise to joy? Can those most challenging moments where feel so tested, our patience is tested, our practice is tested, can we see, "Ooh, yeah, I'm really on the edge of my practice. You know, that this gives me something to work through, to develop in, you know, to apply the principles and the teachings and the practice. And can we rejoice in that? That to the degree that we suffer, there is, you know, a degree in which we can awaken. So we need, you know, the Thai Thich Khan, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh says that I wouldn't want to be in a world where my children, where there isn't suffering for my children, because they would not realize happiness. Right? So I'm paraphrasing what he says. If there's no suffering, how could we realize happiness and what would propel us to awaken? What would propel us to practice? Just like God, yes. Yes. Scott, you have your hand raised. Would you like to share?
Yeah, please. Yeah, Trina, when you mentioned that you were going off to a retreat and didn't know when you'd be returning, I kind of sensed a sadness in your voice, and it made me sad that maybe you were not leading the life that you wish you were. And then it occurred to me, sometimes I think to myself that I'm not leading the life that I should be. And then I started going down the list of all my friends, and so many of them are not leading the life that they had hoped they would be leading. And then when you read that passage, that writing by Nadia Bolz-Weber, that was just spot on to what I was thinking there. And I think I'm going to incorporate that writing of hers as soon as you send me a link to it in my morning meditation, because wouldn't it be wonderful to start our days appreciating what we have rather than going through the day wishing for something else. So it was just a very interesting synchronicity that you read that after I had had those thoughts of so many of my friends and so many people that I know wish their life was something other than it is, which is, of course, the definition of sadness.
Mhm. Yeah,
So thank you for that.
thank you so much, Scott. Yeah. It's on my phone and I don't know how to get it. It's on an app and there's no way to send it. So I'll see if I can what I can do. Yeah, it's on.
Screenshot, maybe?
Yes, I could do that.
I have faith in you.
Oh, thank you. What a that's what spiritual friends are for. And thank you for calling that out. It's that two side of the coin. It's as I was sharing that, I was feeling this melancholy that came with leaving the world for a month and maybe longer. But like I felt the melancholy, but at the same time, I felt, also what is ahead. Wow, there's, of course, there's an ending, and then there's a beginning, and inside of that, there's joy, and there's also melancholy, a feeling of melancholy. So you picked that up. Yeah, thank you. So this is a mixed feeling, and I think isn't that the human experience? I think of people, for example, who, you know, have their first child or second child. There's some excitement to it, and there's also grief of, okay, I'm no longer living the single life, or getting married. Okay, I'm excited, but there's also, something that has to die. And for me, there's the letting go. There's you know, okay, I'm really doing this, and there's feeling the edge, but at the same time, there's also a lot of joy. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and okay. Thank you for finding that uh, article and putting it in the chat. Yeah, it's on Substack. For those of you in the room, it's on Substack, substack.com, and it's a prayer for Friday. The name of the writers Nadia Boltz Weber. Margaret, yes.
Yeah, you know, there's a number of different teachers that I listen to, and for Dhamma talks, and but they're usually Theravadan monks, and um, um, I've been encouraged, and it can be very difficult, but it is really good for the mind to think for a moment, what am I taking refuge in?
Mhm.
And there are two different ways of approaching that from the other side that I've heard of, taking refuge in change and taking refuge in awareness.
Mhm.
And you can work with either or both of them together. And what it is really resting
Mhm.
in something outside of yourself, let's say awareness.
Mhm.
It is really truly resting in awareness and trusting, as they say, in awareness and trusting in change, because they're both there. Well, the awareness is always there, it seems to me, and the change is always happening.
Mhm.
And it's kind of lovely. It's good to, I find it helpful to work with those phrases.
Mhm.
So,
Thank you so much for
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. That again. Um, I wanted to share the 7 ways of practice that was translated in uh, by Tai Thich Khan, and it follows the 4 foundations of mindfulness: the Anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing, and some of you have heard this. So in the 7 ways of practice, we're getting to what I mentioned earlier was that state of joy and then leading to bliss. So we start with 1, following the breath in daily life. So breathing in and out and being aware of the in-breath and the out-breath. And then noticing if the breath is long or short. Is the in-breath long or short? Is the out-breath long or short? And then the next part is bringing awareness to the body. And we experience the sensations in the body. And then the next is realizing the unity of the body and mind. So that moment when we find that our mind is at home in the body, we are working now to calm the body. And then the next step is to nourish ourselves with joy and happiness. So once the mind comes back to the body, we work to calm and tranquilize the body. Then now we're working to cultivate that joy. And once we experience that joy, experience that bliss, that subtle state, and then observing our feelings. So we experience all the mental formations, the sankharas, and we work to calm those mental formations. So these are the imprints. Sometimes I think of it as the residue that is there in the mind after activities, after the stimulation we've encountered. And then after that, we work to care for the mind and liberate the mind. So we work to gladden the mind, right? And this is like that part where we arouse the joy. We work to brighten the mind. And then upon brightening the mind, gladdening the mind, then the mind becomes concentrated, and we continue to work to apply our attention to our anchor to remain concentrated in the present moment. And then the mind liberates. And then the last step, I'll share that as well. Then we move from serenity practice, then we move to Vipassana practice, which is insight practice, looking deeply in order to shed light on the true nature of all dharmas. So contemplating on impermanence, right? Contemplating on non-craving, contemplating on nirvana, which is the relinquishing of all the hindrances, and contemplating on letting go. And I want to share a short translation from Bhikkhu Thanissaro. It says here that when the meditator sees the 5 hindrances abandoned in themselves, and here he says himself, gladness arises within him. Thus, gladdened, rapture or joy arises in him. And when he is rapturous in his body becomes tranquil. And tranquility, in turn, leads to happiness, on the basis of which the mind becomes concentrated. Thus, rapture precedes the actual arising of the first jhana. Right? So, first, gladness, and then it gives rise to joy or rapture. And then, when joy takes over the whole body, then tranquility, and then tranquility is followed by happiness. And on this basis, that's when the mind becomes concentrated, where we let go of any effort and it becomes this effortless effort. And I will close by sharing a poem from Mary Oliver, Don't Hesitate. Don't hesitate. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is in its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. Don't hesitate. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happened better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. And now I'd like to just share a message from Pacific Northwest Meditation. This is sent to me to read. The Buddha emphasized the joy of giving, right? So when we talk about joy, there are different ways we can give rise to joy. Joy within. Here we talk about joy of giving. So the joy of giving is dana. And dana is, in Pali, the word is generosity. So dana is not meant to be done reluctantly or an obligation, but rather dana should be performed when the giver is delighted before, during, and after giving. So it's most basic in its level. Dana in the Buddhist tradition is giving freely without expecting anything in return. And this is the act of giving that is purely out of compassion, out of goodwill, or the desire for someone else's well-being. So today, if you'd like to practice the joy of giving, dana, you can make a donation. We have a donation little box out there right by the door, and on that table, there's also a QR code. I think we have to flip that sign the other side, where it goes to support Pacific Northwest Meditation, and this will support us as we continue to bring in teachers of many different voices. Next month in December, we have a nice variety of teachers that will be here. The first Saturday in December, so next week, Candle returns to teach, and then the first Saturday in December will be Romaine teaching about grief and loss, and or about the mindfulness of thoughts. That's one of the topic, and then we'll have Alpesh return to teach from the Vipassana insight tradition. And then the last two Saturday, we have Thai Kozen. So Thai means teacher in Vietnamese. And he is the abbot of Mount Adam Buddhist Temple. And that's Scott, Reverend Scott's teacher. And he'll be the first ordained teacher we have in our space. So we're very excited to have him. And he'll be teaching 2 weekends on I believe it's the 21st and the 28th. So please mark your calendar for all of our wonderful teachers who'll be here teaching in December. And right now he and Scott are on a pilgrimage in India. So they might be on their way or already arriving there. So we'll be sharing about his pilgrimage, but also his wisdom in the Dharma of I'll share a little short story here, but I came to see Thai Kozen last Saturday, and he shared about his how he came to the Dharma, but he was raised Catholic, and his parent identifies with the Quaker tradition, but near to their home was just either a Catholic church or a Baptist church, and they decided to go to a Baptist church. And one day he came in for mass, and the person at the door said to him, You can't come in looking like that. God would love you if you wore a suit and a tie. And he was in disbelief. He went home and, shared this, and I don't know, it was his mom or another adult who said, "So what do you think about this?" And after he shared his view, the adult said, "You sound like a Buddhist." And at this time, he went to his, he's never heard of Buddhism, and he got curious. And so he went to his mom and he said, "I want to go and visit my friend who's, living somewhere else." So his mom let him go and see his friend. And what he actually did was he purchased a plane ticket to Japan, got ordained, and never came back. And he was 12 years old. Yeah. So that was his journey. Yeah. So I hope you all, tune in and maybe live so you can be with him and feel his energy. But he worked as a full-time as a nurse to save up to build the temple and this beautiful retreat ground, 23 acres. If you'll have a chance, I invite you to come out there to visit. And so it's open 24/7, and it's a beautiful ground. It looks out to Mount Adams. You can see Mount Adams from there. And on the other side of that same property is a Druid sanctuary. So a priest, the most, I think, well-known Druid priests in this country, they together purchased this piece of land, and it's beautiful property and very well established and very eclectic. But he'll be here on the 21st and 28th of December, sharing the Dharma with us. So I hope you come and really soak in the Dharma through him. Oh, and Scott says, "I'm in Delhi now. Kozen is on his way here." Okay. Thanks, Scott. It's great to have you tune in with us. I'd like to just close by inviting 3 sounds of the bell, and we'll listen to the bell and bring our mind back to our body. And as John Kabat-Zinn says, if you are breathing, there is more that's right to you than wrong. Thank you, friends, for joining me in Sangha today and for sharing your practice and your reflections, your inquiry, your insights. And I wish you much success as you continue on this path, continuing to return back to true refuge. And I'm honored to be able to share my greatest passion with you by being in this seat. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. to share the Dharma as well. So I wish you well in the journey and the next hour, days, weeks, months to come, and may you be happy and well. May you remember to abide in the boundless qualities.
Thank you,
And
Trina.
You're very welcome, Margaret.
And enjoy, have a wonderful retreat.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Take
Good
care,
to see you.
everybody.
Bye, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, Scott, for putting that in the chat. Oh, bye, Kimberly. Yeah. And for everyone here, we have social hours, so if you'd like to stick around and enjoy some snacks and be with each other, and I'll stay here too, and we can, chat and just be with one another.